Good morning or afternoon, depending on when you started this video, third graders. Here is our warm-up problems. So you're going to find the fraction that's listed below each shape. So if you take this circle, I want you to cut it into 6 and shade one of those 6 in. The rectangle, it needs to be 1/10. Triangle is a half. The half oval or the semicircle is 1/2, and then this one's a little tricky. Give it a try. If you remember that it needs to be split into equal pieces. So I'm going to give you a hint. Start by putting a dot in the middle and then go out to create. You have 5 pieces that you need, and there's 5 points. So there's my hint. And then our problem here is the Vikings have been to the Super Bowl the following years: 1970, 1974, 1975, 1977. How many years has it been since their last time they have made an appearance at the Super Bowl game? Food for thought. If it's been so long, why has Mrs. A.B. keeps cheering for them? That's a good question. I still ask myself that all the time. So pause the video, solve these problems, and then click play when you are ready for the lesson. Okay, so we're going to be doing a little bit more of fractions on our geo boards. So let's just go over. A fraction is when it is a piece of a whole thing. That fraction, we have denominator. That is the number that's on the bottom of our fraction. I always think denominator down. DD, the denominator number is down on our fraction. So it's the ones that are on the bottom. Our numerator are the numbers that are on the top of a fraction. So those are telling us how many, if we had pizza, that number on the top is telling us how many pieces have been eaten. Or if you were doing your work, that number on the top tells you how many pieces you need to shade in. Denominator tells us how many pieces are part of the whole thing. So if you had a piece of cake and you cut it into 8 slices, the denominator is 8 because you have all 8 that made a whole. Okay? So we're going to be using our geometry boards. So if you can go to our math app online, I have that link in your Google Doc assignments, and I want you to open that up. So if you need to pause this video, open up this website here. We're going to be doing some work on our geo boards for today. So I want you to think about this geoboard here. And I want this geoboard for you to think about it as this whole piece, this whole geoboard is one whole. So it's like one whole pan of brownies, one whole chocolate bar, something that is the whole thing. All right. So you can either follow along and do this on your geoboard, or you can just stick with mine and watch me as I go through it, okay? So I want you to tell me if this is the whole thing. If I divide it this way, and this top one right here, I'm going to label this A. This piece is going to be A. How big is piece A? Okay, so I'm thinking that it's 2 pieces, and piece A is all on the top, and that's just one of the 2 pieces. So A is going to be half of a piece. It's half of this whole. So it's 1/2. I hope you agree with me. Now, what if I take, forgot to take my marker off there. right. What if now I take that and think I only want to focus on this part, this piece right here? What would be the fraction of that piece? I'm going to call that piece B. This is going to be piece B. So that orange part. Okay. There's a couple ways we can go about doing that. We know that A is equal to a half. And that whole part is half. And so when we see B, we're thinking that this part right here looks like it would be the same as this part right here and this part right here. So I'm noticing that if I ended up making that same piece between the whole, how many pieces would I end up having? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know it's going to be 4. And I'm only looking at just the part with the rubber band. So I have to get rid of all this right here. So that's telling me that piece B is only one of the 4 pieces. So I have A is a half, B is 1/4. And that makes sense because half of a half is a fourth. And that's what B is. Now, what if I take this part and stretch it so it's that size? I want to figure out the purple here. I'm going to label that piece C. Oh, there's a purple color. Well, so this is going to be C. And I want to figure out what that is. Well, I can clearly see that that is a square. So I can make all of those squares here. Oh, and we're working on area. And if I know that 4 squares go this way, and I can see 4 squares go this way, I could do 4 times 4 to find out how many squares I would have all together. And that's 16. So my C is going to be equal to 1/16. This square is only 1/16 of the whole thing. All right, now I'm going to look at making another shape. I hope you're able to figure this one out. I'm going to label this one D. Okay, I know you guys know this one. My green one is D, and we know it's the same size as this purple one over here, and we just solved that as 1/16. Sorry, my 16 kind of looks a little crazy. So it's 1/16 is D. And so then that leaves me with E right here. This part is E. Any ideas? I see that if I did this, it would be 2 of our 16ths. So what would be equivalent to 2/16? I also see that if I just split it this way, I would have 1 piece, 2, 3, 4. And that would be on 2 sides. So that would be 8. So that would also be the same as 1/8. So we were able to use our GeoBoard to help us figure out the fraction of the holes that we could have when we first started off as our very whole shape. I also love that we could use E to figure out how to solve B, because I know E is 1/2 of B. So if I needed 2 of my E sizes, that would be 2/8, or that's the same as 1/4. So now we're starting to see that if it's 2 of our 8ths, now we're starting to add fractions. That is the same as saying 1/4. So we're working on a little bit of some equivalent fractions as well. What I want you to do now, keep your GeoBoard up if you need it, because we're going to be looking at page 216 in your yellow student book. This is what that page looks like. So look at page 216 in your yellow student book. What I want you to do is you're going to have to figure out the size of A, the size of B, the size of C, the size of D, and the size of E on this shape here. So if we just started off with A, just like we did in our other shape, we could see that A, what does A look like to you here? It's a triangle, but what is the fraction of that, of our whole GeoBoard? Oh yeah, I see that it's 1/2. So you could write A equals 1/2. What I want you to do now is I want you to pause your video and see if you can figure out the fractions for all the rest of these letters, and then play when you're ready to check your work, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and then do this on your yellow book, page 216, and then press play to see how you do. All right. So we're back. I know you finished your letters. When I look at B here, I'm going to compare it actually to C. I noticed that C, look at that. C is 1/4 of my whole GeoBoard. So I'm actually going to skip down to C right here. I'm going to just put that in right now. Now, if I look at B, I notice that it is 1/2 of 1/4. Well, we used our GeoBoard before to figure out what 1/2 of 1/4 was. And that means that every square here would need 2 of them to equal. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So B is 1/8. Ooh, and now look at D and E. They are the same size. So I know once I figure out what D is, E is going to be the same thing. And these two are the same when I put them together as B. So now I'm figuring out what is 1/2 of 1/8. Wow. We just worked on that with our other GeoBoard. And 1/2 of 8, which would be 8 times 2, that would be 16. So we know that D and E are both 1/16 of our GeoBoard shapes. All right, so you are going to be working on, that shows kind of what we just did here. So this is going to be in your yellow book. It's the next page. You are going to be working on page 217 in that yellow book. You are going to be dividing the square into the number of pieces you need. Remember, that's your denominator number, the number that is down, the number that is on the bottom. And then you have to shade in the correct amount. So here you're going to split it into 4 pieces, and you need to shade in 2 of them. So that's what you're going to do here. And then for number 2, you have to do if they're less than, greater than, or equal to. And good, see if you can figure out that challenge, okay? So last piece is we need to go back to our numbers that we, or our workup problems at the beginning here. Okay, so we have to find the fraction listed below. So if it's 1/6, you know, I'm not a huge fan of circles when we have to try to figure out fractions, but they gave us a circle. So I'm thinking that I'm going to cut it in half because that gives me 2 pieces, okay? And I know that 3 plus 3 is 6. So I know that on one side, I need three pieces. I'm going to try my best to make them even. It's a little hard to write on your computer. And then, so that's 3 pieces. And so that means that I need to then split it another time to get 6 pieces. And I need one of those filled in. So I'm going to shade 1 in. I am really hoping we didn't see anything like this. These are not equal pieces. Ugh, that does not work. Do not do that. Okay? When it's a circle, it's really the best way to kind of split it this way. This rectangle needs to be split into 10 pieces. Again, I'm going to split it in half. And then I know that if it's 5 on one side and 5 on the other, that would give me 10. So I'm going to split it so that I end up with 5 pieces, trying my best to make them even. And I need to shade one of those in. Okay, so that is 1/10 of my rectangle. This triangle, remember we want equal pieces, so I actually have to split it that way. And my semicircle, splitting it down this way. Again, I'm trying my best to keep them as equal as I can. Now for our challenge over here, I had told you that it might be helpful to make your dot a dot in the middle of the star. And then I'm actually going to just connect the lines this way because each piece then would be equal. Oh, and I got to go back here. I forgot to shade in my numerator. Gosh, golly, I'm sorry about that. Okay. And I now have to shade in 1/5 of my star. Okay. I'm trying to make this look as nice as I can, but it's all right. On to the Vikings. The Vikings have been in the Super Bowl the following years: 1970, 1974, 1975, 1977. How many years has it been since their last time they have made an appearance at the Super Bowl game? So even though they gave me 4 dates, I only want to focus on this last date here, okay? So I am going to take the year right now. I'm going to do this on a number line if you don't mind. I'm going to take the year now, and I have to then get to 1977. So it is 2020, and I need to get to 1977. If you don't mind, my brain kind of does a better job at adding up. Even though we need to subtract to find the difference, one of the strategies that we can use on a number line is when we start at the smaller number and add up to the bigger number, we're still finding the difference between the two numbers. So I'm first going to make a tiny jump to a friendly number of 1980. So I added 3 here. That's my add. Okay. Now to go from 1980 to 2000, that's 20 years. Okay. And now to go from 2000 to 2020, that's another 20 years. So all I have to do now is add up on the top 3 plus 20 plus 20, and it has been 43 years since the Vikings have gone to the Super Bowl. Big bummer. Now, I just want to check this another way to see kind of what might like if I just did standard algorithm. If I did 2020 and I took away 1977, because you have to put the smaller number on the bottom. I have 0 in the 1, so I'm going to regroup. I'm going to do a different color now so we can see. Regroup, I have to take 1 from the 10, so that leaves me with a 1, and now I have 10. I have 1 and 0. 10 minus 7 is 3. Now I have 1 minus 7. I can't do that, so I have to look to my neighbor. There's a 0 there. They don't have anything, so I have to look to the next number in place value, which is a 2. I can take 1 away from there, which makes this 10. And then I still have to go over again, so now I have to take 1 away from there and put my 10 here. So now I have 11 minus 3, or minus 7 is 4. 9 minus 9 is 0, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So I still got 43 years, but it took me a lot longer to do than if I had used a number line for it. But it's a great way to check your works to make sure that you solved it correctly. All right, third graders, you are off to solve your yellow book page. Okay, bye everyone.